So good morning. It's time now to meet our panel. And I'm going to have them come up here and let me tell you just a little bit about them, and then they're going to also take a minute and introduce themselves. So Bobby, come on up. And Bobby is a senior who will share her personal journey of facing isolation and how she found the strength through community and support and meaningful connection. Thank you, Bobby. Wendy's a geropsychologist, and she will provide us insights with mental and physical effects of loneliness. She works at the UCSD Department of Psychiatry, is that correct? Yeah. Jessie, come on up. Jessie is the president of Village Encinitas, and she's going to discuss local community programs designed to help older adults stay connected and support one another. And Shirley is a representative from Frosted Face Foundation, who will highlight the unique bond between seniors, rescue animals, and how pets can reduce isolation and joy. So I'm really excited to bring all these experts up here to give us information. So before we start the panel discussion, Bobby, do you want to just share a little bit about yourself, and we'll just go through each person here.
I think we have it. Hi, my name is Bobby Rubenstein. I owned a nonprofit community. I wasn't expecting to say a little bit about myself. I owned a nonprofit communications business that specialized in nonprofits. And part of what I did was training nonprofits on how to get media attention and how to access various kinds of media. So I've always been very active, but I decided to retire when social media became really a prime way of communication. So I had a choice. I had to learn everything there was to know about social media, or I could retire and travel with my husband. And we went everywhere, so it was a wise move. So I've been retired for about 10 years. And I moved down here when my husband had to go into a facility because I couldn't care for him anymore. And he's since passed away, but here I am. I moved to be near my son. And that's it.
I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
Let Mindy just talk.
Yeah. Good morning. I'm so glad to be here today. Love to be in the community on my days off. I have been a psychologist in the Senior Behavioral Health Division of the UCSD Department of Psychiatry for about 20 years now. I work exclusively with seniors, doing psychotherapy, running groups. I train my colleagues and people in the community about how to work with seniors because it is there's a dearth of people like me who do this work. There's not enough training programs and not enough graduate students doing this work. So I train a graduate student every year to work with seniors to learn about working with this population, which is greatly underserved, which is one of the reasons why I'm here today. So look forward to sharing some of my knowledge with you.
Thank you. So Jessie, you push up so it's ready to ask.
Hi there, I'm Jessie Hanwitt, and my past includes such things as being a mom, a grandmom, having a very large collection of senior dogs that I love dearly. I was an occupational therapist, a grant writer, and probably for the last 10 years I made the decision that what I do now is going to be intentional. I'm going to pick things that are important to me and that I feel like I can make a difference doing. So I'm excited to tell you about Village Encinitas and look forward to talking to you afterwards too if you have questions.
Shirley?
Good morning, I'm Shirley Tweedell and I live in Rancho Bernardo. I retired from management and training and development in course design. And now I spend my time helping seniors adopt cats and dogs that are rescued. So I'm a volunteer for Frosted Faces in Ramona.
Okay, Bobby, we're going to start with you, and I'm so glad to have you here and sharing your personal story. It means a lot to us. So share with me, what are some of the benefits of being alone?
Before I do that, I want to give a shout out to you and to Rick. And the reason I'm up here today talking about loneliness is all of you in your packets have feedback forms, right? And about a year ago, I was sitting where you are, and I was in the middle of all of you feeling so lonely, not knowing where to turn. And so I made the suggestion that we do a panel on loneliness and making connections. And all I could say is the rest is history. You took me up on it, and it spurred me on to, it was kind of a year-long journey of researching and talking to people and learning to deal with my own loneliness. And with that, I will tell you the benefits of being alone. I found that one of the greatest benefits of being alone is I got a much deeper understanding of who I am, what I need now, and the who I am is so different from the who I was when I was working and raising a family. And I have different needs, I have different interests, and by understanding who I am now, I was able to build a life that works for me now. I started with research, which is what I always start with, and I learned that knowing yourself well builds confidence in who you are, and it can help you navigate all sorts of roadblocks. Here? Okay. I'm not an expert in using these. All kinds of situations. And inner confidence can also help you decide how you want to spend your time. And it can help you reach out to others, because when you're confident in who you are, you're much more likely to be willing to meet other people.
How did you choose to live in Encinitas?
When I decided to move to San Diego County to be near my son and family, I thought about where and how I wanted to live. I had cared for both my grandparents in Northern California, and the biggest lesson I learned was proximity matters. I was always within 10 or 15 minutes of where my parents were living. And so I knew that when my husband went into the care facility, I wanted to move. I had one more move in me, and it was going to be near my son. I also knew I wanted to live in an active living retirement community, and in a minute I'll tell you where I live. And I figured we're all coming from somewhere else, so we're all kind of open to meeting friends. I also wanted a place with no stairs, and that was a nice environment and safe. But most of these communities, I think they are. I visited a number of communities all the way from Oceanside to Rancho Bernardo, and I settled on High Country Villas because it's 20 minutes from my son and 20 minutes from the Jewish Community Center where I volunteer. And I get a lot of my religious support. All of our activities in High Country Villas are led by volunteers. And Jesse will probably mention a little more about that. It's a wonderful community, and I've never regretted moving there. It offers a lifestyle that is exactly what I hoped for. I'm not used to juggling cards and motor.
It's a little difficult,
I'm
isn't
doing
it?
the best I can.
You're doing great.
Okay, here I am.
So how did you develop the lifestyle that supports where you're at right now?
I continued my research, no surprise, and I spoke to other older adults. I attended more of these community meetings, but I started to actually turn to the person next to me and have a conversation. Not while someone was speaking, but there's plenty of time to do that. And I encourage you to do the same. It feels like community in this room. I also thought it would be helpful to figure out if I was an introvert and extrovert. And Wendy, would you like to explain for a minute kind of what the clinical...
Give you a break from holding the microphone.
Yes.
So there are lay definitions of extroversion and introversion, and there are also what we call psychological or research definitions. In psychology, we tend to think of them as how people derive their psychic energy, basically. So introverts fill up and kind of restore their energy and resilience by being alone, having alone time, cogitating, reading, meditating, gardening, whatever they're doing, and that's how they restore their energy and strength, and so that they can then go on and do what they need to do in life. On the other hand, extroverts are people who derive their energy from the social arena. They walk into a gathering or a party and they can be the center of the room. And just from talking to other people and groups of people, they get energized. And introverts tend to prefer one-on-one encounters, but extroverts are happy with it all. They can, so there you go. Tell us about you.
Well, I knew those definitions, and I was confused because I love being with other people, but when I want to recharge, I get my juice from being alone. And I read psychology today, and recently they had an article on something called wild introversion, which is a very weird name, but there's a part of me that's pretty wild, so I figured, okay, I'll read it. People think I'm an extrovert because I put myself out there all the time. I'm volunteering, I'm going to friends and doing things, but I didn't feel comfortable thinking of myself as an extrovert because when I filled my life with too many people things, I needed to go home and recharge by myself. And most of us are most of us are a combination, a little bit of both. But for me, I really struggled to find that balance. Here are, for those of you who are struggling to find a balance and trying to figure out whether you are an introvert or extrovert, or maybe even a wild one, here are some of the characteristics that I have. I don't enjoy parties, but I cherish one-on-one times with friends. When I'm passionate about something, like addressing loneliness, I dive right in. I love challenging myself, and when I paint, I tell myself, okay, this is an experiment, and I go ahead and experiment. I enjoy being a leader, and I'm currently leading a story group at the JCC. I love adventures, and I don't shy away from taking risks. And a couple of the risks that I've taken were very scary to me because I didn't start seriously painting till COVID happened and I was stuck at home. And I started painting, and San Diego has an art competition for older adults. If any of you paint, you can contact me. I'll give you my phone number, and I will tell you how to find out more about that. The first year, I submitted a painting, and to my incredible surprise, I won 3rd place. Last year, I submitted, and it is very scary because it's like being naked. It's very scary. I gave them another painting and won 2nd place. And now everybody is turning to me, everybody who knows me, and they say, and what are you going to win this time? It's time for first, and I don't know, but we'll see.
Ed,
Okay.
you still have more?
Yeah, just a little
Okay.
bit more, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I wanted to tell a story so that you know a little bit about the fact that
A quick
I
story.
don't know any more than any of you. I just was committed to learn. What I wanted to end with the description is I make sure I balance my alone time with my social time. And I am never alone because I have a little dog, and I already know when she passes away, which she's not ready to do, I'll be going to Frosted Faces, which you'll hear about later. I felt a lot of relief when I read the article about wild introversion because all of a sudden I felt I had a roadmap for how I wanted to live my life. Knowing myself has helped me accept what comes my way and make decisions that will serve me now as an older adult. Okay.
So you already kind of touched on what you do when you feel lonely. Do you want to share anything about technology?
Oh, okay.
Or I'm just
no.
keeping us on time. No? Do you want to
Oh,
share more?
I sent you a new set of questions last night, and the question, and because I adapted this presentation. It's been a long time since I've done a presentation. I want to tell people why I joined Encinitas Village,
Okay.
which Jesse will talk to you more about, and I believe there's some handouts as well. I was familiar with the village movement because I had tried with a group of other people to start one in Northern California. I moved before that village got off the ground, but when a village was started in Encinitas, I signed right up. And part of the reason I signed up is my son is part of the sandwich generation, and he is so busy all the time. He's got a high-pressure job, 2 kids, one of whom's getting ready to go to college, and a very busy life because he volunteers. And he doesn't know how to turn up a light bulb. So why ask him for things he can't do and doesn't have time to do? And the village has been a godsend, truly. I needed a tree pruned, and I called the village.
Let's cut
You wanna
that
move
short.
on?
Yeah, because Jesse's going to talk about the village.
Okay,
So.
and I have a real good example when she does.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks for moving me along. I tend to blather when I'm not reading my cards.
Okay. So, Wendy, how does chronic loneliness differ from temporary feelings of being alone?
So, one of the, thank you. This helps. So, feelings of being alone is a physical circumstance. And being alone does not necessarily equate with being lonely, because people can be fine being alone, and as long as they feel connected periodically to their social circle or family. And even temporary feelings of loneliness, which is an emotional state versus just physical one, are easily remedied, with well-practiced coping skills and a solidly in place support system. Now, on the other hand, chronic loneliness is a distressing kind of persistent emotional state where people feel really left out and separated from socially. And you can either be physically alone in that state, or you can be in the midst of a marriage, a social circle, but not feeling connected to anyone. So chronic loneliness really is the state of when you believe that your social circle is inadequate, is not meeting your needs. And that's when people feel literally left out, feel rejected, or just not connected at all. So and this, this gets into, people can get very far afield with this, with the chronic loneliness, such that if people spend enough time alone, and this happened to us during the pandemic, and it's still going on with a lot of young people, that you can become, sort of out of practice with socializing. And it can be extremely detrimental to the point where you're not getting the feedback that we need. Our brain is wired to connect. And we need that feedback from the person who gives us the eye contact, smiles at us. We are wired for that. Without that, we suffer.
Yeah, that's a really good example as far as what COVID did, because I saw that with a lot of us.
Yes.
We kind of got stuck in a rut and didn't want to go back out. And
Right, people
taking
forgot.
that risk because it's scary.
But
It's
people get
different.
scared, and people can get stuck in their own heads with their beliefs about their own inadequacies, and then they sometimes can believe that the social world is not welcoming to them, which leaves them feeling more in fear and less apt to go out, and so it becomes this vicious cycle of not venturing out and then feeling more lonely.
So what are some of the common misconceptions about loneliness in older adults?
So one of them is that getting old is equated with that you're going to get lonely. It's part of getting old. It's a natural sort of occurrence, which is not true at all, because actually seniors in our country have much greater states of well-being than young people. Young people actually have greater degrees of loneliness than seniors do.
That's an interesting thought.
Despite the fact that as with every decade older that we get, we actually are spending 30 more minutes alone every day on average. Those are the data. So between, by the time you're 60, you're spending 2 hours of more alone time per day than you did when you were 20 on average. But it doesn't mean that it's lonely time. It means that we learn to do different things at this time, as Bobby was saying. Another misconception, a lot of the media show pictures of seniors looking sad and lonely, staring out a window, looking bereft. But that's not an accurate portrayal of most seniors in our country, even though a lot of us do live alone. So I think, and also that seniors are more depressed than young people, and that also is not true.
So younger people are more depressed then?
Yeah,
Oh,
clinical
okay.
depression is actually at greater rates in younger people than in retired people.
Yeah, well, and I think there are so many misconceptions about seniors. It's like, I think a lot of us are a lot more active than our parents or grandparents.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We know a lot more than they did. We have benefit of a lot of research about healthy aging that we can put to work for us. And we have all kinds of community programs and knowledge about eating, sleep, learning, exercise, socialization that keep our brains and bodies.
So you did bring up about depression. How does loneliness contribute to cognitive decline or conditions like depression or anxiety?
So chronic loneliness, because we're not getting that socialization, that feedback that we need, and that feeds our brains and bodies, that kind of feedback, the socialization. It does. Without that stimulation, our brains suffer. People who are chronically lonely actually have lower degrees of brain tissue volume in those areas, like emotional areas of the brain. The other thing is chronic loneliness is linked with sometimes poor health behaviors, sedentary lifestyle, smoking, maybe more alcohol use, and those are not good for us from a health standpoint. The other thing is that it often can have effects on our cardiac system, so that if we have racing heart and hypertension, because we are lonely and that we see that to be true, that can affect our brain health because our brain is not getting its proper oxygenation. So you can see cognitive decline happen, memory lapses, without that feedback loop that is so critical for our health.
So what coping mechanisms or therapies have proven most effective in addressing loneliness?
So from a psychological standpoint, cognitive behavioral therapy is the most researched, the most probably adapted, and probably has the most effective track record with working with people who have dysfunctional thoughts about themselves, about the world, thinking that the world is not welcoming to them, and that they're not adept or don't have they're not liking themselves, or they have depressogenic thoughts about their sense of worthiness. So helping them correct a lot of those thoughts and teaching them to activate and get out in the world and learn new things and find out, realize who they are and do that personal work so they can take it out there in the world, utilize it, and then get that feedback that they need. So and there are many, many others. You can talk about it if you'd like. But that's there are also mindfulness techniques, and there are lots of actual behavioral programs, community programs, to get people talking in the community. The Europeans have done some great work with having chat line, in the grocery store in the Netherlands. They have, you can either go to the regular checkout line, or you can go to one where if you want to have a chat with somebody and you want to take more time. Imagine that going to Whole Foods or Vaughn's and being able to just have a conversation. It's kind of, and then, yeah.
Well, I actually do that in grocery stores.
People do. But
I talk about their food sometimes.
That's right,
Like,
but those, and the thing is also, is having those conversations with strangers, with acquaintances, whatever, those are mini mood boosters in our day that we didn't get when COVID was a thing and we were on lockdown, and people realized how much they missed those little nuances, those little connections during the course of your day that keep us buoyant and going.
And one of the things that pops in my mind as we're saying that, one of the things that I love is random acts of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the grocery store, it's like taking somebody's cart and bringing it in, or saying something nice to the cashier.
Some people pay for someone's coffee behind you.
Yeah.
Right. And we need more of that. We're going to need much more of that. Right. So yes, all of these things. But going out there and talking to people, because we underestimate how much we might glean or have an interesting encounter with someone we don't know. We underestimate the positive effects of doing that. And generally, it is a positive experience. I take my dog out all the time, and we always have a great day.
So you mentioned mindfulness. When you say that, are you thinking meditation or just being mindful in the moment every day, or
both.
what is that? Okay.
Both. So mindfulness, there's mindfulness meditation, which is, I don't know how many people here are familiar with mindfulness? Okay. Yeah, so mindfulness meditation is a type of meditation where you're focused on your breath. You're just breathing, being present in the moment in a non-judgmental way to whatever happens. Thoughts might, of course, they'll come in, your brain never stops going, and you kind of just put the thoughts to the side and you just maintain your breathing, and you're in the here and now. I call it your brain hygiene.
I'd like to add something, because I use mindfulness all the time.
Good.
But about 4 or 5 months ago, I decided to just practice staying present.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't talk enough about the importance of just, it's hard for us to multitask right now because our bodies just don't work like they used to. And just staying in the moment after moment.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have done that when I tripped.
Exactly.
Right. So being careful and the idea, it is mindfulness, the idea of pausing. And even pausing when we're communicating with other people, to listen, be more compassionate in the story, when things are going on. It is that pausing, being aware of what's going on around you, getting out of your head and into your environment. But talking with other people, petting people's dogs, going out taking a nature walk, looking for things, new things in our environment, those are all mindful practices that are hugely beneficial.
So let's move on. How can caregivers and family members identify when loneliness becomes a clinical concern?
Okay, so this is actually a really important question because of the role of caregivers taking care of people who are disabled. So when someone is living alone, is disabled, they're probably more prone to loneliness. So, but when you see changes in someone's sleep patterns, that someone's reporting more nightmares, because lonelier people have more nightmares. You see weight changes, someone stops eating, they don't have any more motivation to go out, they want to stay at home, they might be talking about how lonely they are, they have more fatigue, their immunity might be compromised and they may be getting sicker, they're feeling a sense of overwhelm. When you see a lot of these kinds of changes, maybe clinical depression, all of a sudden they're turning inward, isolating, not just completely withdrawing socially, that's when I think we want to intervene. Yeah.
And like, would somebody feel that and reach out to you, or what would happen?
So, all right, okay, so yes, there actually are little questionnaires that we have that in the public domain that you can even ask a person questions, and I actually have them. Let me pull that here, because this is helpful. Right, so you can actually ask a person, are you feeling left out? Are you lacking in companionship? Are you feeling isolated? And how often are you feeling that way? And then have various people ask the individual those questions and see if you're getting consistent answers. Right, and if you're seeing this over time and it's not changing, the answers are consistent and predictable, then I think, yes, an intervention is warranted.
Okay, thank you. Are there any specific personality traits or life circumstances that make someone more prone to loneliness? Did I just ask that?
Yeah, so
Sorry.
so living alone
Yeah,
is
okay.
the big biggie. And I was looking at the data about this, and we as Americans, we tend to relocate more than any other culture in the world. We are on the move. Because technology allows us to do this. And about a quarter of our population that lives alone, which is at no time in history has it ever been, the number's been this high. And I think that's problematic, because I think when we lived multi-generationally, we had more social support built into our system, yeah. So living alone, I think being widowed or divorced, and now gray divorce is an issue, because 1 out of 10 divorces now are people over 60. That's a new trend. Declining health and mobility. Being male, men tend to have less well-developed social networks than women do. And there are a lot of data on this, and also it may have to do with longevity and ill health. Men who are married in relationships tend to be in better health and are more buffered. They do better emotionally also. If someone does not have a good family support system, if someone is a full-time or long-term caregiver, you don't have time for your own socialization. You're stuck caregiving, and that can be a huge loss personally. I think the other one is digital or technological exclusion. Someone who is not up to date. And I have a patient like this we had to teach, in his 60s, had to teach him how to text on his phone this week. That, in this world, that can leave you feeling really excluded and vulnerable. The other things are hearing and vision loss, of course, and then which both make you more prone to cognitive decline. So of course you're feeling that you can't hear what's going on, you can't see what's going on, you're going to be feeling more left out socially. The other thing is decline in your activities, and this happened during COVID. So when book clubs, other kinds of things shut down, and I had a friend the other day I was talking to about this, who was depressed, and she said, I just realized that my groups and things I did before COVID are not happening anymore. And so the data around this are interesting. So that for every group that is lost or discontinued, that is related to a 10% drop in quality of life 6 years later. So keep coming to forums like this and keep up with your activities and start book clubs, start new things if you're feeling at a loss.
Take those risks.
Right.
So how can individuals find purpose and connection after a major life change, such as the loss of a spouse or retirement?
Right. So I would say, getting out there into your community, volunteering, adopt a pet, learn new things, go join.
We're going to be talking about here shortly. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Join OSHER. lifelong learning institutes, come to the senior center. There are also programs out there online, which I have a flyer which has some of them, which pair young people with older people on video chats. Get them talking about things like climate change, how we can help with that, just telling life stories. There are also, I would say, go to educational forums. There are writing groups, book groups, reading groups, where people share their written poetry, their art, their creative process. Go travel, go to museums, do what you can to stimulate yourself, and go out and talk to strangers in the community.
So one last question. So what role does self-care and mental health maintenance play in reducing isolation?
So it's a huge role, because our self-care is, the way that we, I have some good notes about this and I don't want to, so our self-care, the way we take care of ourselves, oftentimes requires that we leave the home and we socialize. So they're intersectional. And so we go take a class, we exercise, we do yoga, tai chi, and living here, we're not bound by the weather. We can go out every day. So the other thing is to pick up the phone, to call, call people to connect, put it out there. All those kinds. Let me see. I wanted to make sure that I. Let's see. Yes. So the other thing is to seek psychotherapy if you're really having a tough time. I run seniors groups, and my seniors show up religiously every week. They said, this is my support system, even though we're mostly online. And they are there for one another. They feel incredibly well connected. So finding support groups around things that you value, things that are important.
I find that really important. I've never really been in a support group until recently. There's a dementia support group because my mother has Alzheimer's really bad. And just being there with others who are sharing that same experience is just, it's really made a difference.
It helps us feel like we have community around our suffering, our stress, our pain. And as human beings, that buffers our stress. It does, and helps build resilience. And it literally calms the system.
Yeah. And there's so many different kinds of support groups that we can reach out to.
Bereavement groups, there are.
Wherever you're at, it's like.
There are even dog walking groups. There are coffee clutches. There are anything you can think of.
So
I
Religious
wanted
groups,
to
too.
just
Real quickly.
add, I'll be quick,
Okay.
but as an introvert, I tend to isolate myself, and I can't always tell when my loneliness has reached a critical level, and I found symptoms to notice.
Okay.
And it was real helpful, like when I don't feel like painting, when I don't feel like calling a friend,
Right.
when I just want to stay at home and
Yeah.
doodle, that's when I know to pick up the phone and make a date with someone.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to move on to Jessie. So Jessie is the president of a newly formed, it's called Village Encinitas. And I wanted just to say real quickly, Rick and I, when we were getting some of our different senior certificates, heard about the Village to Village Network and looked into it, and we were so impressed. But it was a lot of work to put it together. And so when I saw that the Village Encinitas was being formed, I reached out to Jessie and had coffee with her. And it's like, it was so exciting that you're doing this. So could you just share what inspired you to create Village Movement? Or create let me start over. What inspired the creation of the Village Movement and how it differs from different traditional senior programs?
Sure, I would be happy to do that. I do want to start, though, and take a second to say that I moved to Encinitas, not Encinitas, but Southern California about 10 years ago. And I had lived in Oregon for about 20 years. And my son's down here, and I just made that decision that it was important to be a little bit closer to family. But, when you pick yourself up and you move away from somewhere where you've been for a long time, you lose your support system that you had. I wasn't working anymore, so I had lost that support system. And then when I got here, I didn't know anybody except for my son and my daughter-in-law and my grandkids. And I didn't even really know my way around all that well. So I can distinctly remember how I felt for the first, maybe even 6 months, where I would wake up in the morning and I would say, I have to get out of the house. So I would do things like go to Lowe's, anything just to get in the car and go somewhere. And it took a while. I mean, it's kind of like reinventing yourself. It's like you had a whole life, maybe you had kids that you raised and had a job, and then things change. I mean, it's pretty dramatic, really. So this last 10 years, like I said when I introduced myself, it's been kind of intentional. I've looked for things that could make me happy, where I felt like I could make a difference. And that's why I'm happy to tell you about Village Encinitas. The Village movement is so exceptional. And it actually started in 1999 in Boston, in a neighborhood called Beacon Hill. And evidently there was a group of people there that had raised their families and were getting older, and they realized that they weren't going to be able to stay in their houses and age in place unless they had some help. And by help, it's small things. It's not necessarily, having somebody come in and put in a new air conditioning system. It's the little things that can make a difference, like trimming a bush, or help with walking your dog, or maybe transportation. And so they just decided they were going to do that. They were going to make it all volunteer. They were going to ask for help, and they were going to give help. And the idea was so positive that it began to spread. And so now there are over 300 villages in the country, and California has over 50 of them. And the way I found out about it, I think I remember reading about it years ago in an AARP magazine, but a woman named Amy Stuck, who lives in Cardiff, had been at a conference, and she had seen a poster outside a room where they were talking about the Village movement. She decided to go in and listen to what they had to say, and she got so excited about it that she thought, well, we have to have one in Encinitas, and came back. And one of the first things she did was she came to the Encinitas Senior Citizens Commission and was only able to talk for the 3 minutes, but gave a little bit of an overview about what this was all about, and that she really wanted to get it started. And she said, if there's anybody that's interested in helping, she left her contact information. And I just thought it was just the best thing I'd ever heard of. So I got in touch with her. It's about 2 years ago. And the interesting thing about the Village is that it's a simple concept of people just helping each other and receiving help. If you need help, giving help and receiving help. But making it happen, that was big. So we've been working hard on it, and that's how it got started.
So one of the things I just want to interject, so Jesse's sharing about the Village Encinitas. There are other villages in San Diego as well.
There are other villages in San Diego. Actually, some of them have been around for quite a while. There's one in City Heights, there's one in Tierra Santa, there's one in another place that I keep forgetting the name of, Sarah something. There is also one in Carlsbad, but the one in Carlsbad really just focuses on social activities. They do a lot of things by Zoom. They have book clubs, and they watch movies, and then they have discussions. But it hasn't really gone to the other cities yet. If you enjoy getting on your computer and you look up Village Movement California, you can see a list of all of the villages in the state. A lot of them are in Northern California. That's where it started, and it's kind of trickling down.
So how does a network build and sustain this sense of community among its members?
Well, the thing about the Village is that when you become a member, two things happen. You have the opportunity to help other people, and you have the opportunity to receive help if you need some help. When we first started, we decided to start as a pilot project where Bobby and I live in High Country Villas, because it's a large over 55 community. It's got like 450 homes. And it also has a clubhouse with all of the social activities taken care of. And that is really a focus of villages around the country, the whole getting people out and giving them, besides the helping part, giving them the opportunity to be with each other. So we thought, well, we'll start in High Country Villas, and that way we can get used to our software platform, which I'll tell you about, and just the whole running of the village, and then we can expand out into the city. So initially it started there, and people were given the opportunity to say the kinds of things that they felt would be helpful for them to have as far as help went. And we have this software platform, and I wouldn't want the word software platform to frighten anybody, because we also have a phone number. And if people don't feel comfortable getting on a computer or on their iPad, they can just call a number. And with that number, have somebody talk to them about what's available and how to sign up and what the membership is. But basically what happens is, once you are a member, let's say you need a ride to the doctor, and either your car isn't working or you're not comfortable going, you want somebody to give you a ride. So you either call that number and say, hey, I have an appointment on this date at this time, I need a ride. And on the software, we can put in that information, and anybody that when they signed up said that they would be a driver gets an email that says there's a new service request. If you can fill it, please do. And so people are matched with each other through that software platform. So besides that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move along, we also have, at High Country Villas, we have monthly meetings. In the city, we've had informational meetings, and we're going to continue with that, because now it is available to anybody that lives in Encinitas or close to Encinitas on the border, you know, on a case-by-case basis where we're figuring that out. So we have times that we can be together. Starting this month, this is brand new information, we're going to have on the 4th Friday of the month, so this month it'll be February 28th, which happens to be my birthday, which is kind of a cool thing. Thank you. Right. We're going to have a coffee and chat. We're going to meet at Bird Rock Coffee Roasters down in the Lumberyard, where there's a lot of place to sit, it's easy to park, and just get together and talk. It has nothing to do with giving service or getting service, it's just a time for people to be together. We're going to have a Zoom meeting for those people that feel comfortable doing that once a month as well. And as time moves on, we have plans to have maybe meetups in the park and have like a little potluck, or times when village members can get together, because one of the things that we were concerned about was that you might be volunteering and you might be receiving help, and you're meeting other people, which is a wonderful thing, you know, people that you hadn't met before, but having the connection with the greater village, we know, is also a priority.
So you've kind of touched on some of the services and activities. Are there others? You know, one of the things that you had mentioned that I just thought was really cool is like if you had surgery and you couldn't take your trash out, or, you know, so are there any other little things like that?
Well, I mean, honestly, the nice thing about it is that what we do is whatever we want to do. So, yes, I actually just had a phone call recently from somebody who knows she's going to have surgery, and she said, I'll be able to do everything, but I can't do anything that's heavy. And can somebody take my trash out? And somebody signed up for that in 2 seconds. Somebody else asked for help learning how to crochet. She decided she wanted to crochet, and she's trying to do it from YouTube. And she just knows that there's somebody out there that crochets. So we're hunting for somebody that can crochet to help her. But there's nothing too simple, and there's nothing, you can ask for anything. I mean, the hope is that when it goes up on the website, there'll be somebody that can say, yeah, I think I can help with that. We had a woman who couldn't get her robotic vacuum to work, and somebody else that needed to have help washing their dog because they had hurt their arm. So that's what I mean. It could anything. You just have to get that mindset. A lot of people will say, well, you know, my neighbor has always helped me. It's not a problem. She'll run to the store for me. But your neighbors can get tired. And the advantage of this is that you're reaching out and giving somebody else the opportunity to help you, because it feels as good to help as it does to be helped. And you get to meet somebody new.
Yeah. So one of the things we were going to ask is about how it empowers seniors to reach out and help each other. And that is, it's like, I agree. I think people want to help, but they just don't even know how.
Right.
So this helps with
This
that.
really makes it easy. I mean, you know, once you sign up and you know, well, the other thing I want to say is that some people will say, well, there's two things. Some people will say, I don't have anything to offer. I mean, what could I possibly do? Well, that's not really true, because we are pretty exceptional, and we have had so many experiences and done so many things that we can definitely help. And even if that help is, there's one thing that's called a friendly visit. You can check a friendly visit. There are people, you know, as we've been talking about, that are feeling kind of down for whatever reason. Either it's mobility issues, or they're just in a place in their life where they wouldn't mind having somebody to have a cup of coffee with. And you can click on that friendly visit and you can be connected that way. And I know we're gonna, I don't even remember what we're up to, but I do want to mention
We're right there about
Okay.
mobility and transportation.
Yeah,
let's
so
go.
the other thing is that if you have mobility issues and you think, I can't help anybody because I can't drive anybody to Ralph's or anything like that, we are setting up a phone buddy system, and we have 2 people that have signed up for it so far. That is something that's used a lot by other organizations and by other villages. So you get a person who, you know, I think we both, you could say, well, I'm going to help this person, but the person that's receiving the call is thinking, I'm going to help the person that's calling me, because, you know, you're having the opportunity to develop a relationship. And I know with the 2 people that we've started with, I said, you don't have to think that you have to have a 3-hour conversation. Really, start with a check-in. You're going to call at the same time, maybe a couple of times a week. So if they don't answer, you know, it's like hey, you know, maybe we better check on this. And, you know, see how it goes. I mean, you're probably going to find things that you have in common that you're going to want to talk about. So that's another way that we can do that.
It's really a good thing. One of our friends' husband, he takes a guy shopping who has mobility issues, and they become friends. Now they have lunch after. You know, it's like, so they get to know each other and really support each other.
Right.
Can you share a success story of someone who's been impacted by joining the Village?
Right. Well, and the interesting thing is that, you know, I should really tell you that we actually just started accepting membership in August. So we're very young, and we're building it as we go. And I would say what happens is, after you have a meeting with somebody that's helping you, you have to fill out an evaluation. And I feel like that's very interesting. Well, you want that feedback because you want to know if something didn't go wrong, like maybe somebody drove you to the doctors and they drove way over the speed limit and you weren't comfortable with that. So we need that information. But the feedback we've gotten is that everybody was so pleased with meeting another person. And I'll tell you about 1 or 2 things. Bobby had a good experience, so I'm going to let her tell you about one. But for instance, we have a woman who's 94 years old, has an iPhone, uses a MacBook, and she was asking for help because she was confused about passwords. Because you know how now when you go to set up a password, they want to give you one that's about that long, and it says, you know, you don't have to worry, don't write it down, you know, you don't have to worry about it. And she didn't want to do that, and she couldn't figure out how to do her own. So somebody came over there and helped her with that, and she said it changed her life because she just loved searching for things and signing up for things. And she's 94, wonderful woman. And there's another woman who lives near Bobby who has mobility issues and loves being able to go shopping to the food store. She can go to the store, she can get it, you know, drive there herself, get into the store, buy what she wants, and have somebody from the store put their groceries in her car, but when she gets home, she can't get the groceries into her house. So that little, that can make such a difference in somebody's life. You don't want to give up going to the grocery store and start using Instacart just because of that. So that's something that was, I think, a really big success.
So Bobby, you want to tell your story real quick? Short.
Be as short as I can. I know I tend to go on. I needed same-day surgery, and I was getting anesthesia in Encinitas, and I needed someone to drive me home. So, and I didn't want to bother my son because it would have been a whole day for him by the time he waited, took me home, made sure I was okay. I picked up the phone, I called the Village, and within just a few hours, I not only had a volunteer to take me home, he was a retired physician. And he made sure I was set up at home and I needed more help at home than I thought I would. And then he didn't like how I was sounding later in the evening because he called to check on me. And I told him my ear was bleeding, I was having a problem. He came over and ended up calling 911 for me. So, and I made sure that my son knew that he wasn't getting bothered because I want him to be knowing that he doesn't have to be responsible for me as much anymore.
Thank you, Bobby. So before we move on, do you want to quickly talk about the steps that are involved and the cost of?
Yes, yeah. So if you want to belong to a village and you live in Encinitas or close to Encinitas, the process would be just to either get on our website. We have little cards over there and flyers so you can look at the website. If you're not comfortable with that, you can call. We do have an annual fee, and we don't have any paid volunteers, we don't have any paid staff, we don't have any office, but we do have that software platform, and we are required to have people do a background check because they're going into other people's houses, and you would feel better about that anyway, especially if somebody's going to be driving. And we have liability insurance, and that is a requirement of the liability insurance. We have a phone, and it's overhead. So we charge $10 a month, $120 a year, and then you pay for your background check. If there's somebody that says to us, I really want to belong to the village, but that's a little bit more than I can deal with, we do what other villages around the country do, and we say, pay what you can, and then we can subsidize the rest of it. And the cultural part, I think I just want to say like one sentence about that, because celebrating other cultures is a wonderful thing. I think that we will get to the point in Encinitas when we can do that, and we could do that with events, and we could do that with meals, and learning about other people's culture, and that would be, a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, it certainly would. Thank you, Jessie. So a lot of us know that pets really can help us feel not so lonely, they're cheerful. And I've heard so much, first from Jessie, about, it's called Frosted Faces Foundation. And so my friends and I went up one day and took a tour with Shirley. And so I've invited her to share a little bit about could you tell us what Frosted Foundations is?
Sure. Frosted Foundation, it's a 501c nonprofit organization. Excuse me, I have a little bit of hoarseness today. And what they do is rescue senior dogs that would, in all likelihood, be euthanized. They rescue senior dogs to be dropped off in shelters and be perfectly good dogs, and try to get them fostered and adopted, and especially they try to match dogs with seniors as well as other people as well. And the thing is, they've set up so they eliminated one of the major barriers of owning a dog is the medical bills. As we know, medical bills as we get older are more expensive. The same thing with our dogs and cats. And they don't only rescue dogs, they also rescue cats for all you cat lovers out there, although they have a better facility for dogs. And one of the barriers is the medical medical services. So what they do is they pay for the medical services for the life of the animal as long as you use the facility in Ramona. And I'll talk more about the other services because obviously we're talking a lot about loneliness, and one of the ways we really believe helps, especially seniors and anyone else who's lonely, is to have a dog or a cat. And there are other animals in that category, but I'm focusing more today on the dogs.
So how does adopting a pet help our senior population reduce loneliness?
There's so many ways that pets, I love some of these. They form, you talk about connections and meeting people that you don't know. You form connections with other people just by walking dogs. You meet your neighbors. I was amazed myself because I adopted my first dog as soon as I retired. And I was walking my dog at Rancho Bernardo Park, and not knowing what to do with myself since I was always so busy with my whole identity was wrapped up in my work. And even though I had 8 grandchildren, but they're from New Hampshire. I mean, I'm from New Hampshire, and I knew just my daughter in California, and like you, I couldn't just depend on them for my social life. And so I met a woman down there and said, I don't know what I'm gonna do, whether I'm gonna put out my shingle, continue contracting, or what to do. She said, you should join a group called Wednesday, Etc., which is a Rancho Bernardo social group. So I did, but I met her because I was walking a dog and she was walking a dog. And another example I have, one of my favorite examples, I have a neighbor whom I never met except she's very quiet, more of a loner type person, but we became good friends because she walked her son's dog and I was walking dogs for myself, and by this time I had 2 dogs. And so anyway, but what happened is her husband became very ill and he passed. And you know, she had no family except the one son living with her. And do you know, all the neighbors turned out for the celebration of life for her husband. And these were all neighbors she met from walking a dog and talking to people. Another way is it helps build social networks. And through dog parks, for instance, there's a group of seniors in Rancho Bernardo that meet at 3 o'clock every day at the Rancho Bernardo Dog Park, which has been let go, by the way. But they still meet, and there's probably about, I don't know, 12 to 15 seniors that meet every day. The dogs play and they socialize. And that's quite interesting to me. And there's some research by Cigna that says that besides nuzzling you and loving you and licking you and so forth, that older adults who own a pet are 36% less likely to report loneliness than older adults who don't have pets. And I have a friend who has a parrot, and she feels the same way. And she walks that parrot around the neighborhood. Another study shows that 87% of people feel more relaxed after spending time with a pet. They spend time, people who spend time worrying a lot, pets help them live in the moment, because as you know, animals live in the moment, and we have to live in the moment with a pet, because when they're demanding, they're demanding. A University of Michigan study sponsored by AARP said that 70% of older adults said their pet helps them cope with physical and emotional symptoms. And there are some studies that show that people who are ill recover faster with pets, and 46% pets take their mind off of pain. You don't have time to hurt, so you just keep going.
So how does owning a pet help improve the fitness in an older adult?
Well, the research indicates that even a low-intensity walk of 20 minutes a day improves heart health, lowers blood pressure, and relieves stress. So in older adults, it forces us to take the animal out, especially with a dog, forces them to walk the dog, even if it's a very short walk. Even if it's walking around the backyard and picking up dog crap, you know what that's like. You're active in it, so it helps improve your fitness. You're always putting down food, you're picking up food, you're sweeping up after them. My doctor once said to me, Shirley, it will keep you going. So I said, I have 4 dogs, 2 frosted faces. And he said, Shirley, they will keep you going. And I guess that's right. So, go ahead.
If somebody has mobility issues, you know, do you have some practical tips on how a senior can care for a pet?
Yes, because Frosted Faces has a program that's called Senior to Senior, and we have, and you get assigned, if you have trouble with mobility issues, you can be assigned a volunteer, which is a liaison, that will take your dog to the vet up in Ramona, pick up medications for you and so forth. And some of the liaisons even are walking, and it's up to them, of course, will help walk your dog. And of course, there are other ways too. I mean, one of the women we have who adopted dogs, she's in a wheelchair. And she loves her dog, Sarah. And she lost her husband, she lost her cat, and she has flatly said that if I lose Sarah, I'm done. And so her liaison goes and visits her constantly, takes her dog on outings, and they do hire some dog walkers, but she's in a home now that also walks the dog for her. So there's support, there's a big support staff at Frosted Faces as well that you can call and say, my dog won't do this or my dog won't do that, and someone will get back to you. It's a wonderful organization.
Good. In the essence of time, can we go over like what kind of programs that Frosted Faces has? I know that there's like, you talked about, you know, that someone can pick them up. You know, if somebody doesn't have a lot of money, how do they help? You know,
Yeah, even if you have a lot of money, they help. So they have a senior to senior program, and they work on placing senior dogs because, as you know, like for me, I'm just turned 84, and I worry more about passing before my dogs, which they have another program for that, but I worry more about that. So it makes sense to adopt a senior dog. When I say rescue senior dogs, it is generally, they look at 8 and up, but sometimes they pick up dogs that are 5 and 6 because somebody won't leave them behind because they're going to be euthanized. So you never know what you're finding. And they adopt big dogs and little dogs, so they have all kinds up there. But anyway, they have frosted funding. Okay, I told you that they pay for vet bills if you use their vet, and they also pay for the medications. And frosted funding knows if you have a pet and you're low income, you can apply through their website. You can apply for what they call frosted funding, which means, let's say you have to have your dog is in bad shape with the teeth and needs teeth cleaning. Well, you can apply for a grant from them to give you some of the cost of it. And there are many people that do apply for that. And I have some statistics over there that I didn't bring up, but it would take me a while to go through all that they've helped in 1 year. The other is a Make-A-Wish program. Like I said, I was worried about my dogs outliving me, but for seniors, I mean, none of us know, you could be 36 and all of a sudden it happened, but they will actually take your dog for a small donation and guarantee that they'll take care of that dog for the rest of its life and try to get the dog fostered and preferably adopted. They also have, for seniors that aren't sure that they can keep a dog, or if it would work, they have what they call a fling program, where you can take a dog for 2 weeks and see if it works with you. And believe it or not, I thought that was horrid at first, but believe it or not, it helps get the dog adopted if it doesn't work with you. So the Make-A-Wish program is wonderful, because in my will and trust, my dogs will go to Frosted Faces if I can no longer take care of them. They also will do, take a dog temporarily for someone who has to go to rehab. And they'll foster that. If it's a Frosted Face, they will actually help take care of your dog while you're there. They'll take the dog there. And by the way, we worry about our dogs if you do bring one there, but they have 7 play yards. 2 play yards for little dogs and 5 others for big dogs, which they rotate. So they're not in kennels all day, like unfortunately our Humane Society has to do. And they rescue them, and they provide, they fix them up, and then they take naps at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So anyway, I'm only telling you that in case you.
It was so heartwarming too, going in those little playgrounds, because there's like a volunteer in each of them, you know, either playing or petting them, and it was really heartwarming. Just to wrap it up, Shirley, will you share how a person could visit Frosted Faces?
Sure.
And what's involved in adopting, in case somebody was interested?
What's involved in visiting? I mean, if you just want to play with dogs, you can go up there during open house, which is every Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 1. If you're a senior who is really physically fit, on Sunday at 8 o'clock in the morning, they bring the dogs to a hiking spot in Ramona, and they bring a whole van of dogs, and they match the person's walking ability with a dog to get them out. They really believe in enrichment for their dogs. So that's what they call them, Frosted Fakers. Yeah, good, thank you. They call them Frosted Fakers. But there's an application process on the website. And the website, if you want to write it down, I have brochures for you to take if you want them, is www.frostedfacesfoundation.org, O-I-G, but it's easier just to pick up the brochures I have over there. And it tells you about every single program for seniors and non-seniors too, that you can go. And you can't just go and get a dog. There's an application process. They really work hard to match the person and their ability with the type of dog. So for someone who isn't very, very active, you want a dog that is going to sleep a lot. In fact, I'm pretty active, or I was until my back acted up, but I adopted little Tinkerbell, who's a little Maltese, and she should have gone to an older senior who didn't want to do much, because this dog is just a companion. She just wants you to love her, and she sleeps, and just love you, and she doesn't care about going for walks. I have another one who was a Make-A-Wish dog, came from a woman who passed, and the dog was totally devastated and really having a hard time. I took her in. She won't go for a walk because she's so afraid of losing her home, and I adopted her. I can't foster because I keep them. They call them foster fails when you foster what? Keep them. But anyway, so if you go to their website, they have all the information on the website. And I don't have a business card, but I have helped a lot of seniors who don't use computers get a dog. In fact, I would go up with you if you wanted to go and you didn't want to go yourself.
It's worth the trip. It's so wonderful. Thank you. So I'm going to open it up for questions. If anybody has a question for one of the panel members. Chris, there's someone over here and somebody in the front. We'll come to you next.
I live in Del Mar. Can I join the Village in Encinitas?
Well, you know, Del Mar has a village.
Oh, they do.
Yes, and they don't call it Village Del Mar. I wish I could.
Community Connections.
That's it. That's it. Del Mar Community Connections. And it's been around for a really long time, and it has the support of the city government in Del Mar, so they get a monetary support from them. They do a lot of good things. So check that out.
So Jesse, if somebody doesn't have a computer and they have questions, is it okay for them to reach out to me and you and I'll try to see if there's a village or something nearby for them? Okay.
Is Carlsbad too far?
I didn't see the
Is
question.
Carlsbad too far?
Carlsbad too far for
Or
what?
the village?
Well, Carlsbad has a village, but it's only social, so you don't have that volunteer to, where you can ask for service. We have decided, because we just had 2 people from Carlsbad who applied, and they lived very close to Encinitas. I think the only concern would be where in Carlsbad it is, because when you're asking people to provide transportation, or even just to come over to do a handyman kind of thing, people aren't gonna wanna go too far away. I would say call the number, and we can talk about it. So the number, there's a table over here with a lot of information that has the
You
number.
still have a question?
I do a lot of I just want to know where your location is.
It's in Ramona, California.
Ramona, it's in Ramona.
It's in Ramona, and they're
And
all,
if it's too far to drive, they actually have drivers that will come and get you and bring you up
Yeah.
there.
I would take you out. Yeah. And also,
Okay, over here.
I have her too.
Judith?
For Wendy, if I were in the UCSD medical system and had a demented partner and I needed some psychological assistance, not neurobehavioral, but psychological, how would I go about getting it?
Lindy, here's the mic here. Sure.
So your question was, if you are a UCSD patient and you wanted to access psychological services,
I'm the caretaker.
sorry, you are,
And I am the caretaker.
you're the caregiver, right? Which is a very good reason to see that kind of support. So you would need a referral from your primary care doctor at UCSD to psychiatry. Yeah, and my office is in La Jolla.
Any other questions? Oh, okay, yes.
Yes, this is for Wendy. Wendy,
Yes.
do you have business cards with you and do you hand them
I have business cards over on the table over here.
out? Okay.
I will, yeah. My schedule is very busy. I don't have a lot of openings. I work 3 days a week, but we can talk about it.
Rick, you have someone here?
Yes, question for Wendy. When you were talking about how to combat loneliness, you mentioned something about OSHA besides other things which I understood. What do you mean by that?
Oh, OSHER is the Lifelong Learning Institute at UCSD. And you can pay, it's for people 55 and up. And is anyone a member of OSHER here? Yeah, it's a wonderful organization. That's what they provide: lectures, courses, social outings for seniors. You pay, I think you can pay by the quarter or annual fee. I don't know if they've changed it. And the flat fee, and you can attend whatever you want. They are hybrid. They're both in person and on video. They have just moved. They're located in the building that's actually right in front of the complex where I work. It's 8980 Villa La Jolla Drive, right across from the UCSD campus. So I would recommend you can go on, are you good with the internet? You can go on to the internet or have someone help you with that. Look up OSHER. They have a number you can call. They have brochures. It's a OSHER. Oasis is another one. Yeah, they're just not in this area. Are they online? On Zoom, right. Oasis, they're down in La Mesa. Or Rancho Bernardo. Yeah, and you can do it, right. That's another one. But if you want in person, UCSD is more accessible.
I'm going to ask our panel to go over by their tables. If you'll just sit there one more minute, and we'll let them get to their spot. And thank you, you guys. Let's give them a round of applause. I hope.